Recording. Great work, everyone. Alright, so right now, myself, Blackjack, and Maddie are going to talk about three things. How we got into Hypno, why we got into Hypno, how we learned how to practice Hypno, and we're going to share some tips on how others could do the same. Blackjack, you are, in my opinion, you're the best scriptwriter I've ever seen. You are a true scholar of hypnosis, and I'm going to use this to pick your brain of everything of value. So you're ready for that. And then Maddie, who's in the call as Snarkyheim, am I saying that right?
It's supposed to be Snarky Hime. It's actually a reference to Hime Arakawa from the Himegoto series.
What a reference. They run LatexaTheWitch. They have a WordPress that I'm about to post. They've produced some very interesting files that we're going to re-engineer and publish through GearHeart. I recommend y'all check it out. They publicly post their scripts, which I always love. They have this one file called a writer flip, where you basically turn your role play or fictional character into a tulpa and make them experience the real world through the listener's physical body.
Think of it like the creation of a key. Basically, it's something that, upon referencing it within your mind, it basically acts as a handshake between you and that other half, who, in this case, it could be a tulpa. In another case, it might be a DID split, like me and the one who I possess. But ultimately, what it is it gives a context, a time, and a place where that switch can occur. Controlled environment.
Really great stuff. That I can't wait. Maybe. Oh man, I'm already thinking of ideas on how we could modulate that into some fun stuff. That's a conversation for another time, though. Blackjack, I'll start with you.
Okay. This would best work sort of like an interview, like where you ask me questions and I'm able to answer and just go on tangents as I please.
Absolutely.
Is that all right? Okay, sweet.
Why did you get into hypnosis?
Hypnosis? Hypnosis actually was because of that hands-free orgasm file by Ultra Hypnosis on YouTube. I was just, like many teens, I was just like horny one day and decided to do that. How I got into pony hypnosis was somebody showed me, like, from real life, actually. We were both, they're not on this community anymore, sadly. I don't think I've ever even seen them on Discord. But it was just during, like, a competition, and they're like, hey, I think you'd like this. And so that's how I got into hypnoponies. But that was like in 2014. I didn't start getting active until 2016.
But what pushed you to decide to become a hypnotist and learn how to do it?
I was kind of just dissatisfied with like the scripts that I'd seen, like for the character files, like the scripts and the voicing, the editing. I didn't really know how to do, but I wanted to like one up the copy and paste inductions that I see in, like, say, the character files on ES, which is now kind of a lot harder than it seems, but, and then I wanted to add my voice to that sort of thing. So I just, like, one day I sat down and I made a file from scratch, just, like, with no editing skills, only minimal previous voicing skills, and no writing skills.
Tell us about that file.
It was a Marehood file for...
PH. That was the one that got published?
Nope.
Oh.
Before that, the one that got published on PH was a version 2 from that. I think you've seen the original, Jade. It was on my personal server. I think you found it, but it was. It took inspiration. Like, I took a lot of inspiration from Pony Body Reprogramming, and then the Little Pit file from ES.
And so your entire basis for making that file was what you consumed previously?
Yes, come on. Like, I actually didn't copy as much as I thought or as most people do for their first. Like, I tried to write it completely creatively because that was my goal going into it. Now, that actually resulted in some, like, some safety issues, of course, because I didn't know hypno safety at the time. Let me see. Let me get on topic voice so I can see anybody's responses. But yeah, that was. I think I could just share the script actually if I could find it somewhere.
Yeah, you should.
But that would be
really
later.
Curious what your first work was. Something that about the inductions of ES. Yeah, something that you and I both learned is one of the ways you improve a file is making everything connected. The induction connected to the later suggestions, having a cohesive theme, and multiple meanings to everything. That's
yeah,
important.
not only that, but just the sheer novelty of having a new induction every time. Because I found that while I could trance to the ES inductions at first, later on it was just I couldn't, like, whatsoever because I'd heard everything before.
So now I consider you a scholar of hypnosis. At what point did you go, all right, I'm going to be the best at this? And what did you do from there to become the best at that? Or at least try to?
From the very start, I wanted to be the best. It was just a matter of, like, where to learn. And so what I did for most of my first early career was studied files almost relentlessly, seeing what made them work, what kind of wording was good. Celestia's work, Celestia, Viraki, Damaris, their work helped me a whole lot early on. Forgive me, I'm going to have a little bit of coughing fit.
You're okay. So just consume, analyze. I mean, every time I'm with you, you're like in the passenger seat, just transcribing. You consume an insane amount and then deconstruct it and try to understand it.
Yeah, that was my primary. That's always been my primary method. Other methods are just like talking with hypno, like, savvy people. Like, I'd gone to a lot of dangerous places, dangerous people to, like, to glean what their take on hypno knowledge, and, like, a wide variety of people. Kavi was one. Inky is another. Like, two of the people that were considered dangerous. Kavi at her time was, like, at the time that I joined her server, was still considered very dangerous as a test. She hadn't gotten her mainstream reputation yet. And I just mainly went to her server to learn what she had to say about hypnosis. So, analyze files, pick brains, see if you could get a mentor ever. There are also, Lord knows, there are hundreds of, like, hypnosis guides online for, like, how to write a script. I think, Jade, you shared something with me like that.
Did I? You're right.
I might have got it from somewhere else.
And another thing I'm going to add to your list that I know has helped you, because I've seen it, is collaborations. I know that
Oh, yeah, that too. I don't do it too often anymore, but it's great. Jade is a great collaborator. And
I'm a little aggressive. You take criticism really well. No, I do. I drilled a few things in you really hard during our first collab, and I saw you applying it during a later collaboration. That made me so happy. Yeah, collaborations. And the best result, and another reason why collaborations are wonderful, is gives you and I an opportunity to teach and build new creators.
Yeah. Something else I want to say, though, about script writing and just, like, learning hypnosis in general. Next, I'm going to get into how I got, how I first did my sessions. But for right now, I want to say I wrote a script from nothing, and I voiced it from nothing, edited it with no editing skill, and it was still halfway decent. Just don't be afraid to, just start out.
Just do it. You're right. You can't
make your dreams come true.
Yeah. As soon as you get that, and this is a writing thing in general too. Write, even if you have to convince yourself, tell yourself, I'm gonna write the shittiest fucking script any human has ever produced, in the history of anything ever. Just get it down. Because once you have something, you can look at it, you can self-evaluate it, you can improve it. Get it down, and so you have somewhere to grow from. I agree completely. If Blackjack could do it, Blackjack is terrible at tech everything, and she made a hacking file. Blackjack can do it, and anyone else can. I promise you. She's getting better.
Yeah.
She made it in Audacity. She just showed me something she made for ES. She made it in Audacity. If she can do it with no tech skills and Audacity, there's no excuse. It's free software.
Actually, before I go into how I started sessions, what other software would you use normally? That would be Premiere, I think it was.
Oh, that's me. I use Premiere because that's what I'm familiar with, and I can take a non-audio program and make it work for audio. Dashie would slit my throat if I recommended Premiere as an audio program. Get Audition or Pirate Audition. Yeah. What's some other stuff? Apple probably has a program. You can make it work Premiere. I can teach you how to make it work in Premiere. I don't know anything else. I'm not an audio girl. Penny, you're wonderful, and it's okay that you use Audacity. As I said, Blackjack makes it work, so I have no doubt you can.
Yeah. Anyways, I'd like to answer a few questions, if anybody has any so far.
Yeah, people ask questions of Blackjack. Let's see.
Did I miss anything?
Tomb. Blackjack's opening herself up for questions.
When you normally start writing an outline, do you have a sort of sandwich structure for how you do everything, or an introduction or the ending and whatnot?
Yeah. First of all, I actually don't write outlines. I write totally sequentially. I write it from the introduction, induction, deepener, main suggestions, and deducer. Those are the 5 main sections. Technically 4. You don't always need the introduction, but I sort of just structure it into what I into just the basic things that I want. Say, I'm doing a modular series for 2 parts, and the main suggestions I would split into 4 hooves and tail, for example, and just write it like that. But yeah, I write it from the very start to the very end without so much in regards to within the induction, within section structure. It's not a good way to write, but it's the way I do it.
Blackjack can't plan. She needs to grow in that area, but she is the best darn improviser I've seen. She can...
Oh, a deducer. That's just where you wake... it's called awakener, traditionally.
Yeah, who was it? Lelion chewed me out for that, Blackjack. You got me using deducer. It's not a real word. Started using awakener. Lately, I got in trouble with that with Lay. Deducer something. What's up, Penny?
I was gonna say if you had any recommendations for voice acting and editing for someone who doesn't have much to work with, like yourself.
I mean, I used my laptop mic at first. But yeah, see if you can find a cheap mic.
I have a Blue Yeti.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, that would. I mean, once again, Jade would be the one to ask for tech, at least more than me.
Well, the difference between you and I is you figure it out with no tech skills and no knowledge on how to pirate software. So I think that your feedback may actually.
I do know how. I actually do have knowledge how to pirate software. I just don't.
Okay, well, for Audacity, Penny, what you can do is there's Blackjack. What effects do you use? Don't you import?
Just pretty much reverb.
Yep.
I was about to say just immense reverb as well. I suppose. Thank you.
Another
Yeah, it's
thing,
reverb. Once.
something that you'll notice is when you're listening to your own voice, you can understand the words a lot more clear than if you're someone that isn't you. And so what you're going to want to do is make the background music and the binaurals significantly lower than what's just audible for you. You want it to be like, when you want it to be just to where if you only focus on the binaurals, you hear them. If you only focus on the music, you can understand it. Don't, I mean, Blackjack, you might want to re-level the file you made for ES, because it's ES style and the background music is too loud in my opinion. But it also goes down to
Yeah.
personal
Okay.
opinion.
Thanks. Because I've always had problems like with what should be at what level.
Yes.
Actually, I have a bit of trouble remembering who I did my first session on. So, Jade, would you like to take the stage for a little while while I remember that, and then we could just do our session segments?
I want to talk to Maddie. You there?
Yes, I am.
Maddie, what made you want to get into Hypno?
Oh, goodness. I covered this a little bit in the first part of Pseudonym, which was published between the months of July 2016 and August 2016.
I gotta pull that. I'll link it for you.
And it was kind of a little, how do I put this? A friend of mine who had been hypnotizing a lot and who had been hypnotizing me a lot, we had been going back and forth, and as we were learning about multiple identities were basically being created as a phenomenon from mainly the roleplay community, I want to say. Well, once hypnosis and roleplay started to that and create memory splits, which is very similar to what you're seeing in Tulpa, that's when we started to examine, well, is this genuine or is this something else? Anyway, sorry, I don't want to be getting too ahead of myself with that. So the overarching story of Pseudonym actually goes back to first the past 5 years of my being involved in hypnotism, and then it goes back about another 5 years, so about 10 years in total, to an experience which... No, all of this stuff, this is all personal stuff from my history. I have no problems with talking about it.
If you wrote a fan fiction, you wrote an erotic fiction about it.
I mean, honestly.
So when you decided, alright, here's what I want to do, how'd you go about building the skill?
Okay, so let me start with 2011. I had just entered my first year of university, and I was going through some emotional problems, so I actually saw a therapist who actually was licensed in hypnotherapy. And so one of the experiences that I wrote about in Pseudonym was session of hypnotherapy that I did specifically wherein I talked about something which had happened back when I was the age of 14. And it was a coming out experience. It wasn't the greatest experience. I'd rather not go too into details here about it. But the big thing is it created something of a fragment of memory that when I reviewed it or when I witnessed it in direct proximity, when I was actually able to immerse within that memory, I noticed something very specific about it. I noticed something very powerful from it. In doing that, that really started to get me curious about the mind. Fast forward to 2013, and after doing a bunch of different things, I had left college, I had gone back a few times, I had tried to figure out what I wanted to do. Well, I got into Twitter, and a group of friends started talking about hypnotism. I said, oh, well, I've got a little bit of experience in that, having been hypnotized before. And so we created a Skype group, and then we all just started practicing on each other. So this group basically was, at the time, about 5 or 6 people, and none of us knew what we were doing. If you've read the first part of Pseudonym, you will see a little bit of this conversation. The person in the story, I gave the person's name Valerie. That's not their real name, but it was a good pseudonym. But what had happened is we started with really basic stuff. We started with like making someone believe that they had a verbal tic or that they had the physical features of a cat girl. I decided to be the group guinea pig 9 times out of 10. And as we went along, I started to realize, oh, I really, really enjoy how this feels. Now I want to help others enjoy that. And because of my skills as a writer, it sort of lent itself into it. And so I figured out what worked for me and what didn't. And then as I grew better, I started to branch out and see more people who were interested and sort of rope them in.
So, and then how did you grow from there? So how did you go from just fucking around with friends on Skype to where you are now?
Wasn't the easiest transition, I want to say. I remember back multiple times throughout all of this, there would be periods where I would just take everything that was on my hard drive, everything I had created, anything I had published online, and just trash all of it. It's where you have to think about not just the quality of your content, but the impact of your influence. Are the things I'm doing, are the things that people experiencing, are these the things that I would want them to experience, or is the context all wrong? Able to see the ideals that I might have for it. And so, in a way, it comes not about learning how to influence people, but how to understand them and how to understand your subject, and making sure that you know at the end of the day what your limits are in being able to help them discover for themselves what they want out of this. One of the big things that I say to people especially is know yourself intimately. Understand your shape, understand your senses, understand how you move, how you act, how you speak. Understand these things so that you can more fluidly orient yourself in space and time. That's the kind of thing that I tell people, because a lot of people, when they approach hypnotism, they might come in thinking that the person that they seek leadership from, or the person that they seek guidance from, is going to be able to do all these things for them. However, it really is a 50-50 type thing. If you aren't able to engage, then you might not be able to be influenced.
You talk about going through stages where you would reevaluate why you were doing this whole thing, and then you would just nuke everything. I'm curious, what different evolutions, what different phases have you been in with content, and why'd you choose to change?
This is going to be a tough one, because like I said, there's been at least 4 or 5 of these, and even in writing Pseudonym, there were times where I thought about trashing this blog. Mm-hmm. And it really comes down to who was I with at the time, and basically how were their responses making me feel about what I was doing. That I used to make, the stuff I made in 2013, 2014, it was a hell of a lot more mundane than the stuff I'm making now. Back in the day, I never would have dreamed of trying to make something like Writer Flip. I never would have dreamed about making some of the more powerful recordings, or even some of the things I've done outside of hypnotism, just really dynamic, spur of the moment, sinking my proverbial fangs into someone else over a conversation, usually out of anger or out of something, where just not realizing that I was turning that part of me and making it active, things that have made me think, oh my god, what am I doing? Am I even in control of this anymore? Who's got their hands on the wheel? And so I think that's really why I do question it so often, and do question really the ethics of what I'm capable of, rather than my words. My words are just words. But behind them is the scary thing. And I think as I've grown as a hypnotist, that's become more and more of a responsibility for me.
Measuring yourself by the impact you have on others.
More or less.
And making the content rather than what is convenient, but making the content you wished existed.
Yeah, I mean, and this is something that I've been told a lot, is that sometimes my sense of what's right or what's just can be a little bit too far. And some people, especially people who want to change, the moment that they say they want to change, that spurs something in my head that makes me think, oh, I can do all these things, oh, I can bring them up. But it's not going to be possible unless they're engaged in the first place. And if I can't get them engaged because either my methods are too abrasive or I'm overlooking something very, very vital, part of the reason why some of my other content has fallen flat over the years.
Blackjack, you had something you wanted to say?
Yes, actually. So something that's driven me over the, over the time that I've been a hypnotist, or at least a script writer with my work, is that something that, I probably would have gone, if I'd had a consistent platform that I publish stuff on, and, if I had a method of deleting it, I probably would have done the same thing. But when I look back on, when I get past a certain point in learning, and I look back on the content that I had just created, I sort of look back at it with, I could do so much better than this. This is kind of embarrassing. This has happened, this cycle has happened multiple times, where I think it's sort of that burnout cycle that I talked with you about, Jade, is where, I'll burn out with hypnosis for a little while because I sort of get at a point where I'm lost. I learn something really insightful about it. And then, I look back on the previous phase and I say, oh my God, all that I made is garbage and I need to make something new. I need to make something better. And so that's part of what drives me to make better content. New and better content is, challenging what I've written in the past.
The way I overcome that is I hold myself to two things. One, I make everything I do or I post online genuine. And so long as I'm genuine, there's a certain amount of truth that holds through the years. That's how, even though I have the ability to delete my old blog posts from 2014, vehemently condemning culpomancy as dangerous and not real, I keep them up because it was genuine and there's truth to it and who I was at the time. And the second rule is, if you're gonna, don't delete, remaster. I hear Rootmaster said this. He's a brony rapper. It's why are all these brony musicians deleting stuff they don't like? If they don't like it, do something better. Remaster it. Give the people that liked it and liked your content something to demonstrate your growth. Give people you like and people that you want to show it off to a demonstration that you've improved. And so that's what I do. A lot of my 2014 stuff I have now refuted or done a remaster of, because I just want to go, here's what I actually believe now. And that's so much more effective than deleting. But if the stuff you did wasn't having the impact you wanted and wasn't fully genuine with who you are and wasn't content that you wanted to exist at the time, Maddie, I understand.
I don't know.
You'd want to do
it's just kind of a matter of my skill my perceived skill.
Yeah, I think that Blackjack. I think that your old PH content you should. I like that it's up. It's a demonstration of how much you've grown. Don't delete it. Well, you can't delete it, but
I can't. I could probably request access to.
PH,
delete
don't.
Yeah,
start trouble with PH.
No,
PH, I can ban you too.
You don't gotta tell me, Jade.
Oh my God. Thank you for sharing everything, Maddie. Do you have any tips that you give for people who want to learn Hypno?
I have written a few guideposts on the blog. I want to see if I can pull some up that might give some insight into the kind of things that I would try to give advice to. I know I made one back in 2016 which was more about the technique that I use personally, which is more of a memory technique. It kind of goes into the whole process of how memories are created, the whole you observe, then you encode, and then eventually you have to play back. And it's more of a general thing. This year, I actually tried to do something a little different. The article I wrote is activity journaling for a better hypnotism. And it's one of the newer posts. It was published 6. And it kind of goes into some of the ways that there's a balance between the subject and the hypnotist. It talks really about the language, the syntax, the ways in which we engage with words, for example. That a word is not just something that is seen, it is also something which is felt, touched, tasted, smelled. And in of learning how to read words, you then have to learn how to read people, you have to learn how to write people, which is such a different thing and so far removed from what people are used to. They're not used to seeing people as a language, they're used to seeing words as a language, but you have to be able to associate the two. I'm going to try to emphasize from now on.
Something, yeah, that reminds me a lot of just something that I've been increasingly attentive to in my script writing, which is connotation. I have, like, sometimes I just write an entire induction where I don't care about the meaning of the words, and I just go off connotation, whatever feelings I want to give the person. I think of words that convey that meaning, and even if it doesn't make sense, make it a confusing induction, and NLP, using words to change the thoughts and emotions of someone else.
I think what a lot of people fail to realize is it doesn't always have to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to a point where you're engaging in what is essentially a stream of consciousness, you're talking having hundreds, if not more, related or even unrelated words flowing across your consciousness in real time, just superimposing on each other and rearranging to form different images, but the images themselves that wouldn't make sense grammatically. It's like if you... I don't know if I want to go this far because I don't understand the technology personally, but if you take a look at, say, Google Lens, for example, which was just announced earlier this year, and how a computer is able to read something, but it can read it and then translate it into a language we can understand, we don't really know in real time what the computer or what the algorithm is seeing or how it's interpreting it, not until it's translated it into a language we can understand.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I'm gonna go ahead and say, hey, anyone here who wants to ask Maddie questions, feel free to do so now. What are your plans?
I'm gonna take a real quick break to get coffee.
All right, enjoy. I'm curious, what are your plans for the future of your blog and practicing as a hypnotist, Maddie?
Right now, one of the big things is I do want to finish Pseudonym. I told myself I would finish it with CM. I do not want to do any more of it. The fact of the matter is, the entire Pseudonym story has been about personal experiences with myself, with some of my closest friends, and all of us have been really using the information and putting it out there, hopefully, well, in the hope to better ourselves. But after a while, one thing I have come to notice is the longer you try and document things, the more you're going to fall behind. I didn't really think about this as much when it began. So when I started writing SE, for example, I had cataloged all the logs in advance going back to, I want to say, was when I did it too, and then I stopped collecting logs after December 2nd because I just couldn't do it anymore. I churned out the SE story in about 2 weeks, but if I wanted to keep that pace, I was going to have to go even faster because there was so much more stuff going on after December 2nd that I couldn't even copy it all down. And so one of the big things is, how do I provide this series closure, and how do I provide it the message that I want it to have? And so in writing this last part, I've actually decided to change the perspective a little bit and move it away from some of the people I've been observing and put the perspective more on me, which is how it was when it started. And so it's going to sort of bookend it. After Pseudonym is done, I'm probably going to go back to doing some recordings every so often, not as many as I was doing. I have 7 or 8 other projects, just general fiction, like the Star Maiden series that I wrote back in 2015 and wanted to rewrite, or just more short stories. There's a lot of other things that I want to do. I'm not really typecast to hypnotism, so my blog's going to continue to have different things on it afterward. Well, it's just going to be I can do from here on out.
I gotcha. Well, if anyone doesn't have any questions for you, I guess it's my turn to talk. Last call. Any questions for Maddie? Alright. Let's see, let me go to my notes. I have... Let's see, the reason I got into Hypno is more similar to Blackjack's, which is I have been interested in hypnosis, especially pony hypnosis, for a long time, but I needed to wait until I had developed enough in my person and emotional stability for me to be able to handle the drama and influences that you knew would come with being engaged in this hypno. So wait until I was in a decent place, and I was making a video series on how you could master switching, tulpa switching with your tulpa, and I thought, man, it would be great to finish off this series with a guided meditation. Hey, this is an excuse for me to go and check on how the pony hypno community's doing. Geez, there's a ES, the reincarnation of hypnoponies, hasn't released content in about a year. There's this other place, Positivity Hypno, who is very shut off staff-wise, and my efforts to get in have been thwarted. Hey, there's this person, Leon and Philly officer, who are really nice and have seen my tulpa stuff and would be happy to have me on board. I guess I'll go start releasing tulpa guided meditations and hypnosis through GearHeart. And that's the origin story. I wanted to make tulpa hypno, and Philly and Leon were the only couple, I guess you could say desperate at the time, I guess, familiar with, open to helping starting content creators. What a great way to spin it at the time. And hypnosis offered me a few key things. If I want to learn more about psychology, I'm a psych student, I publish psych research, I want to learn more about psychology, whatever I do. It offers my community, the tulpa community, meaningful content that can help it grow. It's also an outreach effort. Everything I put on YouTube generates traffic from people outside of the community. And I'm building, I think, a valuable skill. Everything I learn about hypnosis is simultaneously something I'm learning about writing, speaking, manipulation. And I don't mean in a negative sense. Manipulation is a skill that can be used for good, and I try to use for good. Sometimes I mess up in that, but that's the purpose of it. And as soon as I made this decision, all right, I want to make an effective guided meditation, I used what knowledge I had in me, remembering when I looped the like original messed up pet pony hypnosis file for about a month every night in 2013. And so I have that pretty much memorized from heart. I love the induction, the sand induction. You notice that I took some inspiration from that and some of GearHeart's content with the Tollbook Guided Meditations of the Modular Transformation series. That induction's inspired by the original Pet Pony script. Doesn't have any of the bad stuff from it, though. Remembering what I learned from other content, writing my first script, getting feedback on the first script. I said, I meet Moonbeam, and I say, hey Moonbeam, you're a text hypnotist, I want to learn how to do text hypno. Give me a session. Moonbeam gave me a session. I turned what I learned from that session into the 24 Modular Transformation Hypnosis series. That was my first time writing a real hypno script. It was based on Moonbeam's text sessions, and was my first at writing a script. I got mentored briefly by Moonbeam. Learned a lot from Blackjack. I learned a lot from Leilion. Getting feedback from people I knew who were good at hypno. This guy from Warp My Mind called Professor Pig, sending my scripts and files to people and saying, how can I make this better? Looking at finding content that I admire and trying to understand what my favorite parts of this was. Asking other people to deconstruct files I loved. Looking at people that I saw as charismatic and breaking down how they manipulated those feelings from large amounts of people. Learning to pay attention to things. As I listen to a file, trying to understand it. As I listen to people, I try to understand them and how their emotions affect me. In essence, I learned hypno through seeking mentors. I learned hypno by studying other content, and I learned hypno by paying attention to the things that make hypnosis and people tick, which is language use, and subtle things like that. Some general tips for people that want to get into making hypno is, I can break that down a little more specific. Pay attention to word connotation. Pay attention to the words that people use and how they make them feel. Learning how words make you feel and then applying those words in a hypnosis script to make the listener feel how you make them want to feel. You can write entire files just based on connotation. How to get a mentor, just see people in this community whose content you love and want to understand and emulate. And if you reach out to them, try to make a relationship with them. Don't go, mentor me. Don't go, teach me hypno. But approach this like you would a relationship. Give them a reason to like you. Say, hey, I'm really dedicated to understanding hypnosis. I'm dedicated to GearHeart. I'm dedicated to your community. I would love to help you make content. I would love to help you make files. Or hey, I know how to audio edit. Can I audio edit in exchange for you telling me about the files you make? I'd love to co-write or watch you write a script. I just want to understand hypnosis and how it works. If you, any of those pitches, I know that me, Blackjack, Moonbeam, any of the other talented business community would go, yes, I would love to have this mutually beneficial relationship with you. Except to like normal words. And then, what we've already talked about here. Create the content you want to exist. I put some more specific advices in the skill building workshops, pinned messages. How to obtain a mentor. Approach a prospective mentor, informed on their content and practices. Don't show up in my DMs like, hi, I know you're a artist, what do you do? Like, well, you could go like, I have a blog and files, go listen to them and give me thoughts, and that, you'd really engage me. 2, offer to express appreciation for the work, offer some unique insights on it, and depending on the person, consider offering suggestions or constructive criticism. 2, offer to help with their content. Pre-reading, conceptualizing, editing, sound engineering, or something else entirely. Express your desire to learn. 3, substitute or complement this by sharing some ideas you have for the content you'd like to actualize. Like, maybe go, hey, I love this file from you. here's a file I'd love to see actualized as well. And what me or Blackjack or Moonbeam would probably do is, let's co-author it. Or go ahead and get a draft done and I'll help you perfect it. For, depending on their response, bridge into a collaboration or mentorship request. That's how you start a relationship.
Alright, can I rant on inductions for a second?
Rant on inductions, Miss Blackjack.
Okay, so inductions are probably the first and most important thing you want to learn. Like, no matter how you phrase your main suggestions in a file, session, or whatnot, it won't work unless you have them into the right mindset. And that's what the induction brings them into the mindset. The deepener is supposed to, bring them deeper into trance where they're more susceptible to the coming suggestions. But learn how to get the subject into the right mindsets. I'll explain briefly how the two basic induction deepeners work. Progressive muscle relaxation works by relaxation isn't entirely necessary to be hypnotized, but it primes the mind to be more open. Because if you're relaxed, you're generally at peace with what they're about to say, and you're less likely to criticize it. That's why progressive relaxation works, from what I've seen. And then a countdown deepener, it doesn't work by counting down their mind. It works by the association that somebody has with counting down. So learn how your countdowns, your fractionations, your affirmations, your mantras, learn how those work, how and why those work, and you can write better inductions and deepeners. That's my rant. That's my 5-second rant for now.
May I add something to that?
Go ahead.
One of the big things that caused me to start varying up my introductions was I actually had some people come up to me more privately and say, hey, you did a really good job at this, however, I am actually terrified of the environment that you created. So sometimes if I were using an underwater environment, that might trigger some fears within them, or if it plays too much into feelings of darkness, or if they associate it with drowning, for example, then that's when I need to think, okay, let me try something else. Let me try something that's more land-based, maybe a thick fog or a sandstorm, or something that has that same auditory effect, because you would think currents underwater or wind above water, but it's just knowing those differences in environment and how someone's going to associate that can make you more effective in your introductions as well.
Great tip. Moon, you just complained about my advice on getting a mentor. Your turn. How do you get mentors? Just call her pretty hypnotist? Is that your tactic? Oh, by the way, welcome, my Dio. Acknowledge me, Dio.
I'm sorry, I was laughing at the "Are you drunk?" comment. My bad.
Ah, you're wonderful. Let's see. I'm gonna pin... Blackjack.
Never stop learning. Never stop seeking. Read as much as you can. Interact with as many people as you can. And know that as you find your way, that you'll come up with your own way of doing things. All art starts as imitation, and as you proceed forward, you'll find your own unique craft. And don't be afraid of setbacks. That's just an opportunity to learn even more.
You're right. Hey, Dio, you should tell us about how you got into Hypno, why you did it.
Sorry, you're really quiet all of a sudden. What's up?
Dio.
First question, or Draconic has a question.
I'll you down. That's what I did. I'm dumb.
Oh, I only have a background in therapeutic hypnosis, so I was curious, in general, there's two theories of how hypnosis works in that community, and it's dissociation or social cognitive theory. So I was curious, when you're writing these scripts, do you keep in mind the idea of hypnosis working on a subject because of how the mind interprets the proper hypnotic subject to act, or actual dissociation?
Generally, I don't go for dissociation. That's mainly I don't use visualizations very often in my inductions at all. Jade can tell you this because I write for analytical and mind blind subjects. But yeah, what I try to do is bypass the analyzing factor of a subject's mind, which is what I think you were referring to by social cognitive theory.
Social cognitive theory, like I said, I don't have a background in recreational hypnosis. It essentially states that hypnosis works on a subject because, well, are you familiar with, in general, social constructs? Like if a doctor tells you to do, if somebody dressed like a doctor tells you to do something, you'll do it, or something like that. An authority figure.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
It's like that. Essentially, the theory states that hypnosis works on a subject because a hypnotist appears to know what they're doing, and therefore their mind, I'm bad at explaining things. Essentially, similar to an authority figure, how one would react.
Opie's pretty well described it when she said building and establishing rapport. Now, in my opinion, this isn't why hypnosis works, but it's in and of itself. But it's why it's how you can make a session work very well by, for example, how I said before, relaxing primes somebody to be more susceptible and open, but also having an authoritative tone in, say, a session, or having a sort of relaxing, I won't hurt or disarm
Dad,
sort
please
of tone
be quiet. It's
in
really important that-
file. Yes, so
Yeah, and Draconic, I'd like to chime in. It's both. It can be both. You're much more absorbative when you're dissociated, and rapport in hypnosis is everything. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the theories aren't mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
You can have both working at once. The mind isn't a.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And what
You know
Blackjack's
that, obviously.
what Blackjack's saying is framing and the priming, the pre-talk, that's huge. If you go, this file has worked for everyone, and I know it's certain that it's going to work because of this, and I know it's going to work on you because you had this, which means it's always going to work on you. That file's about to work on that person. And before, rapport, build your rapport. You can do that in part by having good files and having good reputation, or you can construct it right before the session, like I just explained. So rapport is huge, and if you talk to Lelion, she'd say it's all rapport. Nothing else matters. The file sounding professional is rapport. The word is rapport. The phrasing execution, it's all rapport. Convincing yourself it will happen until it happens. I don't think that's all of it, but that's definitely something that will make it immensely more effective.
Just curious, because like I said, different background and different way of going.
Are you a certified hypnotherapist?
No. I just have some experience in the field from a friend, but that was a while ago. A mentor of mine, but I ended up not going into the field and studying more general psychology.
I gotcha. Are you a psych major undergrad?
It's a long story. Suffice to say, I studied with a professor, not in a school.
I gotcha. It's nice stuff.
I actually like to bring up something that I encountered recently. Those of you who don't know me, I go around there and I help people various things, and I met someone recently who, their father created a hypnosis file for them to listen to since they were 12 to give them success. And they did that for them and their various siblings, and all of them have immense problems since they've been forced to listen to that pretty much their entire lives. I just wanted basic thoughts on that, if possible, and how to help someone deal with that level of just, I don't even know what to call it. I really don't. I've never encountered something of that nature before.
Wait, you want me to tell you a solution on how to fix these people?
I mean, Yeah, I guess. I mean, they've essentially been programmed, and now that that program isn't working out, their heads are breaking, essentially.
This is like this is the literal version. He made it so brainwashing your children. Yeah, brings a whole new layer to them brainwashing your children. They brainwashed your children too. That's.
Are you referencing the Illuminati thing?
No, this is someone I legitimately met.
To Jade.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm not. Blackjack, go ahead and give Dio advice if you have any. That's perplexing. Wow.
Oh, I don't really have any advice aside from, remove the hypnotic programming itself if it's still there.
Yeah, pretty much it's just been like, stop listening to it, and go talk to a therapist. That's the level of just pure damage that it has caused.
I would specifically suggest this would be a good thing for age regression therapy, because the hypnotic programming needs to be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Or the assumptions
send them
about...
your file. Send them be free little have faith. Send them the my cure file.
I think it would be live deprogramming or something like that.
I'll talk with them about it. I'm not sure they'll be keen for that, but we'll see.
Yeah, because just the assumptions in their worldview, those need to be changed to be more positive and versatile.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the damage isn't even. The question you're asking, Dio, you can remove the hypnosis part, and it's the exact same thing, which is these people have been programmed to be. Their life purpose is success, and it's currently not successful in the metrics they want it to be, and that gives them significant distress. The hypnosis file is just a literalized execution that I can't believe is real. Well, I can believe it's real, but at what point when you're a parent do you not go, this is bad parenting?
From what I understand, their dad is a very highly successful businessman from a certain time period where nonsense like this was very common.
I'm gonna go look up hypnotizing your children. I'm gonna go look up if hypnotizing your children for success is a thing. Dio, I'd love to hear about how you got into Hypno and how you learned it and how you recommend others do.
I got in hypnosis pretty much to make my mind stronger. I deal with a lot of weird stuff, and pretty much it was just, I want a more stable hold on my headspace, and as I've learned about hypnosis, every once in a while I'll have to use it to deprogram someone, or to get rid of a bad file they've stumbled into. It doesn't happen too much anymore, because we have other people take it upon themselves to do that, but I mean, it's pretty much just self-taught, honestly. I don't have anything really big to say about it.
Dio,
most of the major people here are self-taught.
Yeah. Straight up, it was just, I wanted to make my mind stronger and more resistant to influence. And, essentially.
one of the headlines is program your kids while they sleep. This is real life, Dio.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I think that was called Hypnopedia, but not because... Oh, wait, no. Yeah, program your kids while you sleep. That's although it doesn't always have to be used with hypnosis, it's still called Hypnopedia because of, hypno originally meant sleep. It's debated on whether it actually works or not.
I mean, we understand so little of how consciousness develops over time and how intelligence is cultivated that, it's all a fucking crapshoot, honestly.
Yeah, I believe you can actually still learn from audio played within your sleep, but only if you have semi-conscious dreams or lucid dreams.
Yeah.
That's in my opinion the way that sleep looping works. How they, originally on Hypnoponies originally they had loop files and they said, loop these while you sleep and you'll wake up more of a pony. I believe that that's semi-conscious sleep is the way that those actually took effect.
I think one important thing to realize when it comes to hypnosis is that all of us have completely different headspaces. That our consciousness from person to person is so diverse and different that just because a file works on a bunch of other people doesn't mean it's going to work on you. And that having these expectations of things are going to work out for me because they worked out for other people can be crushing when they don't. And it's important to note that. It's the same thing with learning. Not everyone has the predisposition to learn certain skill sets. We all have our own path to walk. essentially.
Yeah. Also, side note, we just hit an hour on the workshop.
Great work.
So
Hooray!
We'll wrap it up in a bit. Don't
I
worry.
came in super late and gonna take all the credit, as planned.
hell yeah.
Oh man, this is why you joined GearHeart, wasn't it? Now you're gonna take credit for a workshop.
Draconic asked a question
Yep.
for me. How much experience do I have with age regression? A little bit for like in purposes of memory retconning. There was a malicious tulpa in one of my pets that I had to help them get rid of via that. It's not going to work on everyone, depending on like how they, how their imagination is set, what they would expect out of age regression. But I have a little bit of experience. With
Okay, you have a different. All right, so I was thinking you were referring to
I'm
some
familiar
people
with it. As a
claim to
technique.
be able to recover memories really, really far back, and that's sort of typically, if you were to ask any mainstream psychologist or hypnotherapist, they'd say that that's very unlikely to be achieved to go back really quite far. But I see you're referring to more. Yeah.
Just deprogramming sort of stuff is what I use it for.
Draconic.
Yeah, generally. Oh, sorry, Jade, go on.
I've actually researched the studies conducted on the validity of age regression hypnosis in the context of what you're saying. And here's what they found. They found that when you use age regression for memory recall, two things happen. One, there is the fabrication of false memories. But two, the extra memories that are recalled, some of them are valid. So when comparing age regression to other memory recall techniques, age regression resulted in more truthful memories, but with a trade-off of some fabricated ones. It's not completely bunk, but it's... Oh, look at that. It's like a video game with different stats. Dio, your turn. Or who was it?
I deal with a lot of metaphysical communities, and I deal with a lot of otherkin communities, stuff like that, and hypnosis is often used as a form of past life regression, or just regression through experiences that might be hazy, and every time I've seen it done, there is so much leading going on that essentially is people planting fabricated memories into people they believe is real. So I just want to warn anyone out there who might be interested in any kind of regression in that way to be extremely wary, and because there are a lot of predators in that field.
Mm-hmm. I just use it to be a cute little filly and be free and carefree and free of anxiety.
Hypnosis can be a wonderful tool for both therapy when used responsibly, and of course for leisure when used responsibly. The problem is that it is very ripe for abuse, like many things. So,
there's something I wanted to
be an adult, personal responsibility, etc., etc.
Blackjack,
well, I mean, simply, as much as you believe that it can, the more you believe it can achieve such things, the more potential it has for abuse. Because if you believe it won't do very much at all, then you won't get.
I've seen people who don't believe in hypnosis or any of this stuff whatsoever, and then the right circumstances, it's like getting hit by a truck, and they're just out. Like, it's very much, your mind is very unpredictable, and as much control and as familiar as you think you are with your consciousness, so much goes on beyond the scenes that it's very hard to really know how you're going to react to certain stimuli, such as hypnosis.
Yeah, belief helps with hypnosis, but it's not absolutely necessary. And, well, I say that, but it's conditional. There are some people who are such relentless analyticals or have, like, minds that do that, that belief is almost certainly necessary. But I have seen tests who have, who can skirt around that with, certain, I guess, subversive type techniques. It was a user that had just gotten banned from our community that I had mainly seen it from, or with that ability. But it is possible to fully hypnotize somebody without their consent. not everybody, and it requires a humongous amount of skill. Just like keep your guard up.
Speaking of keeping your guard up, the articles on hypnotizing your children I found recommend parents to, without their children's consent while they're sleeping, plant suggestions into their sleeping children.
Man, as much as I hate the idea of a surveillance state, it would really quell down on this sort of abuse.
Yeah.
Sorry, don't hypnotize your kids without consent. Actually, consent's really fucking important. Get consent. Not I'll find out about it and be grumpy.
Can kids even give consent? That's the main question.
Oh
That's
no,
a very
Dio, don't
big
chime in on
question.
that.
Okay.
No one's state opinions on that. Unless it's consistent with the politically correct rhetoric and laws of the time. Voltaise. You did the wrong
Don't use
thing.
hypnosis to influence people's mental development. How's that?
Great job, dear.
Awesome.
All right, at this point, is the workshop officially over?
Alright, everyone. Last call for questions.
Yeah, any closing questions?
Yeah, one from me. How important is the role of a mentor, do you think, in developing a hypnotist skill set?
Non-essential.
Depends on your drive.
It helps.
You can fully learn hypnosis without ever having a mentor, but it would just be a great catalyst to have a mentor for your progress.
Yeah, and you don't have to. Mentor is a term I'm using loosely. I've never had someone that I called or has called me their mentee. I've never called someone a mentor, but I've learned under people through working with them and getting advice from them. Your turn, Dio.
Basically, not having a mentor means you have to walk a bit further. All a mentor is going to do is let you into their car, drive you a bit farther down, and then let you out. It's just going to save you a little bit of time and effort, because essentially, even with the teacher, you're still going to have to figure out how you can best do it using your own abilities. You're still going to fail, you're still going to do well, you're still going to learn, it's still going to be hard with or without a mentor. It just makes the beginning a little bit easier.
Alright, and but a suggestion for... one sec. Okay, a suggestion for next time is I'd like to, for the next workshop, I would like to give or go more in detail on sessions and how to perform them, since we did almost a little bit of that here.
Oh yeah, we're gonna go more. We're probably gonna Blackjack. Can we do it tomorrow?
Yes, we can.
All right, tomorrow we're gonna do a workshop that breaks down file structure and the more specific components of making content. I'm gonna end the workshop now, and we can move to the lounge. Thanks everyone for coming out. Y'all are wonderful.